Thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, just to elaborate on the paragraph, I was working for a mechanical and plumbing contractor as an estimator for about the first 10 years of my career. I then went into cost consulting, basically mostly on the pre-bid side of things, the design side, keeping track of budgets as the design progresses through conceptual SD and DD. So I've got a decent mix of, actual competitive bidding and field considerations, as well as the less exact world of pre-bid estimating, where a lot is conceptual and there are a lot less known factors. So um, that's my background. I've, pretty much always been estimating. So that's why I like to talk about. So going forward, if you have a question as I go, and I'm really banking on questions, so don't hesitate. There's a lot of different scopes of work that you all represent, and probably different experience levels as well. I'm really going to go slow. Some of the stuff you might all know, some of it might be new, but I don't want to skip over anything. So if I'm not going slow enough, please write something in the chat and I will slow down. If you have a specific question about something that we're talking that relates to you, please throw it in the chat and we can, hopefully, stop and talk about that for a bit. I also will open up to general questions at the end. So if we're talking about something and a question pops into your head afterwards, you'll have an opportunity to ask that at the end. But please, as we progress, um, don't hesitate to throw something in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it, and I'll be happy to stop and try to address the question. So I will start sharing my screen.
Before you start, Kevin,
Yes.
remind you about the little quiz.
I'm sorry. That's the quiz. At the top of the chat, under Hello Kevin, you'll see a link to just a quick quiz. No one's going to see this. It's just for us to gauge that. Hopefully, um, we're teaching you guys some things, or you're learning some things through this process. So we'll do a part one going into this training, and then we'll have a part two going into Saturday's training, which we'll go into a little bit more detail, maybe slightly more complex things, but um, really, once we get into the estimating classes, that's really where um, there's more to it in those, but they're closely linked. Suzanne, we got a request to put the link in again. Can we do that?
I'm here, so they don't see it. I can add it again, sure. But all you have to do is click on that link. Did everybody click on it? Copy link. I'll drop it in again.
Just going to open up your browser. It shouldn't disrupt your the Zoom meeting at all.
Okay.
We'll give a few minutes to get that done. Looks like they got it. All right. I think we're pretty well filled out. If anyone wants to throw in the chat that they're still having issues with it or anything,
I
throw it
know
in.
immediately when they fill it out, I've only gotten 2 back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Gotcha.
I have them all.
Ready. Now I will share my screen.
I'm still working on mine.
Okay, no problem.
Kevin, you should start.
Perfect. All righty. So this is a blueprint reading. It's very closely tied into estimating and takeoff, which is the next batch of lessons. But so this is going to be the preliminary look, as if it's going to be your first time looking at a set of drawings, and just kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at. So hopefully this presentation takes away some of the anxiety that a large set of drawings can bring. In a package of 300 drawings, there may only be 5 that have work for you to actually take off. The rest will either be out of your scope of work or to be used as a reference for you. There's a lot of redundant information on drawings that's presented in different ways to make it easier for you to actually get the information you need. We will discuss how to maneuver through these scopes and understand these reference drawings as efficiently and intelligently as possible. We will cover the basic and most typical items and functions found in construction documents. Obviously, there's variance between architects, between engineers, between the size of the project. Certain state and city functions will have small differences, but there are very typical things that are found in most drawings, and if they're altered slightly. We'll also cover the general flow of drawings, and I'll explain what I mean as we go, but how the different sections work with each other. So starting off the drawing phases, we touched on this a little bit in my intro. If you are bidding work, chances are you are looking at CD level drawings, permit set, the final set, the most detailed set. They should have been reviewed for errors. There will still be errors though. But that's if you are bidding a project, that's typically what you're going to look at, especially if you're bidding to the city or the state or any sort of entity like that. But if you are bidding to a GC or you are a construction manager, which I believe we have in this group, or if you're involved in design build for a GC, then you're gonna have to be aware of the other phases of drawings. So some of those other phases are conceptual, and there may not be any drawings in the conceptual stage. What I find typically is the architectural footprint will be done first, and then everything else will be a narrative. Just you know, we're actually going to cover that a little later. But then there's schematic phase, design, and then finally CD. And in each level of these phases, details are being worked out. So in the schematic phase, if you're a plumber, maybe they have the fixtures laid out, but not a stick of pipe. If you're architectural, they've got the partitions laid out, but no finish schedule or anything like that. And as the phases progress, all those things get filled out. So it's something to be aware of, especially if you bid to general contractors or you might be involved in design build. Again, we're going to cover this in the next class, a little bit of looking at an incomplete drawing and just some of the differences and considerations. And that's also going to overlap with estimating and takeoff because all of these things are closely tied together. Yeah. So then the thing to check for that is the sidebar. We're going to go over the sidebar soon. The sidebar will tell you what set of drawings you're looking at with the date. So that's really only going to be important to you if you are involved early on in a project. Someone calls you for a design build opportunity, you're going to be wanting to make note of what set of drawings you're looking at, so that you can say, a year down the line, this estimate was based on the SD drawings dated 8/28 to 2023. So just another thing to consider in general. So drawings and how they're broken up. So in your large, you probably got an FTP link. You downloaded a huge set of drawings. That's usually how they're delivered electronically in a massive file. So we're going to try and ease the burden of looking through every single page and help narrow down what you're looking for. So most scopes of work are going to have their own dedicated set of drawings indicated by the use of one of the symbols, architectural, electrical, or mechanical. And I'm actually going to be hopping in and out of full screen to just show you an actual set of drawings because it's much easier. So what that is referring to is this drawing tag. So this is a general note, so that's why it's G101. S is structural. Let's go ahead a little bit. A is architectural. F is fire protection. This is sometimes FP. They vary a little bit, but it's it's logical. So that's going to be the same. P for plumbing, E for electrical, mechanical will either be M or H. But regardless, the major trades will have their own set of drawings, and it will be designated on the drawing tag, as you saw there. Within the set, within your scope, so within your M set of drawings or your A set of drawings, there's going to be a cover page. There's going to be plan view drawings. There's going to be elevation drawings. There's going to be details. There's going to be single line diagrams and schedules. And again, we're going to go through all of these individually as we go, but that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of flow, how drawings have a typical flow. That's it. That's the usual basic structure of them. And they're all there to give you different things. They're not all giving you brand new information. So it's just, you might have a mechanical package or plumbing package. We got that. That's 30 pages. And you look at it and you go, I'm not doing 30 pages of takeoff. This job is huge. Well, they might have 2 pages of schedules, 4 pages of single line diagrams that are just for clarification. You know, and so on. So a lot of these drawings are for clarification and for reference. And we'll go into how those work together. But that's going to be what's in your specific set of drawings. That's almost always what's in them. These sections vary job by job and scope by scope, but this is most typically the way they go. The order that these appear will change. But typically the schedules, details, isometrics is another thing. It's basically a fancier single line diagram. But typically the reference drawings, which these are all I would call reference drawings, are going to be towards the back of your set. On smaller projects, some of these things may all be bunched on one page. If there's, not a lot of there's just not a lot to it, then they're not going to dedicate, a whole page to not a lot of information. But, as I'm sure you've all seen, even simple jobs have a lot of information that needs to be conveyed. So on your drawings, we talked on this a little bit, just some very general things to be aware of. The drawing date, and that goes back to the phase as well. And this is always important to make note of. Again, especially in design build type of situations, or if you're involved early. Because if a question comes up, sometimes there are multiple sets of drawings being released at the same time to different people. The architectural drawings might be advancing faster than the plumbing drawings. So someone might, so it's just, we'll get into that deeper later. I don't want to drag on that, but just make note of your drawing dates. It's important. The other general thing to know and to have quick reference to is your drawing list. And the drawing list is simple enough, but it's going to be on your cover page of the drawings, and we're going to go into that. And all it is it's going to list every drawing for every trade that is included in this package. And it's one of the first things you should do, and we'll talk about it in estimating, is go to this and make sure that you got the complete package, because files can be corrupted, human error happens, stuff happens. So you just need to make sure that what you downloaded or what that person gave you for the set of drawings, it includes everything on this list, because they might not be sympathetic later if you missed an entire floor on a drawing and didn't notice that it just wasn't in your bid package or the file had been corrupted. So one of the first things when I'm looking at drawings is I'm looking at that drawing list and I'm checking it to what I downloaded, what I have on my computer, or whatever I'm using to do my takeoff. I'm not sure if we got many folks still printing out all their drawings, but that, I guess that's the safe way. If somebody gives you a full roll of printed drawings, it's on them. But I think more and more these days, you're getting an FTP link to a website and you're downloading them and hoping that whoever set up that website did it correctly. So always important to check your drawing list. We went over this a little bit too, the typical drawing designations: C, civil; S, structural; architectural; fire protection; plumbing; mechanical. You get the point. They also will go into some of the smaller trades like telecom, security, or life safety. those are a little bit of wild cards, the way they show them. But if it's a decent sized job, it's more than likely going to have its own section. These guys particularly get lumped in with electrical often. But we'll probably talk about that a little bit later too. Identify your scales and make note. That's just something I like to do. And most of this information is from the drawing sidebar. So we went over that cover page. So this was our, I'm sorry. Go back. So this is a typical cover page on a project we worked on. So this was a massive job. So they're not, there was precious little on this cover page because everything was broken out. But what will always be here is, they usually have a view of it. I'm blanking on the term for a rendered view of this building. It'll have the name of the owner, and then it will also have the full design team. So if you are bidding a project and you need to submit an RFI, and that's something if you're not familiar with, we will be getting into in the estimating and takeoff classes. But basically, it's just a question. You've got a question. This is kind of going to help you direct where your question needs to go. If you're MEP, you're going to be going to these fellows, and so on. So the cover page is very general. It's not something you're going to spend a ton of time on, but I don't want to skip over anything. It does have your design team, might have the address. It's going to have the owner. It's a cover page, but the big thing is it's a pretty quick reference to your full design team. So this is a drawing list. Again, so you can tell this is drawing list 1 of 4. So this was a huge job, but for reference, this is a little bit of a smaller job. This is the cover page of a smaller job. You can still, it has the rendering, it's got the address, but because this is a bit smaller, they just went ahead and they put their drawing list right on the cover page. So this is, whether it's big or small, this is what your drawing list is going to look like. And it's, it's self-explanatory, but it's going to reinforce some of that nomenclature you see here, all your A's. This is a little funky. Usually these are still A's. They broke out their interior finishes, but that's a wild card I've only seen on this one job, but that's what happens. But usually this is an A. The other thing to note from here is the numbers following it. And they'll usually follow a pattern as well. So your AOs here are information. Your A1 is your first floor, A101, A102 is your second floor. So what this is telling you is your 10s are your plan views. And we'll get a little bit, I don't want to get too crazy into that, but that's kind of the difference in a drawing. It's the same idea, but on a smaller project, they may be able to squeeze more information on a cover page, or on a big bruiser like this one, they need 4 full pages just for the drawing list. So we've gone pretty well into the drawing list. So this is the sidebar that I've been mentioning. That's over here. Occasionally this will be a bottom bar, but it will essentially be the exact same thing. And this is on all drawings. And on here, it's going to be kind of your quick reference. It's going to be your guide when if you do have a large project and you're flipping through. This will just kind of help you keep tabs of where you are. And that's going to have the drawing tag, which is down here, that A201. So this is an architectural drawing. It's going to have your drawing description, which is here. And I'm going to bring up a blown up. So let's just bring it up. Yeah. All right. So this is a CD level set. And you can see here they've blanked out all these other levels. But that's one thing that's going to be on the drawing bar is the date. This is the bid set. It's got some stuff I don't care about. You guys probably don't care about. But up here, if you were involved pre-bid or pre-bid in like an SD phase, this might be 2 years ago conceptual, a year ago schematic. So this bar is common, this type of chart, and this is just keeping tabs on all the different revisions of drawings. Again, if you're bidding a CD project, a complete project to the state or city, or most GC projects, again, unless they approach you that this is a design build opportunity, you're going to have a CD and you won't care too much about this, but it's important to know what it is. So when I said the drawing description, that's this. So let's get, and you can see it's just going to tell you what you're looking at. So you got your drawing tag, your drawing description, your date that's set in your revisions. They usually have the architect. It won't typically have the full design team on the sidebar. That's why the cover page isn't bad to know about, but they'll have at least the architect on here, and they'll have the project location. Occasionally, the scale will be on this one. And we're going to go into scale in a second, but that's kind of your typical sidebar. It's just got some general information, and most importantly, it's here so that when you've got 73 pages, I can just kind of go through without looking I'm on A's. If I know I need to get to it, I'm a plumber. I don't care about architectural. I don't need to keep looking at these until I get to some P drawings. So they're just kind of there to help navigate and be a quick reference of what you're looking at. That's what these guys are doing. So now I just see this. All right, I'm at P's. I know I'm where I want to be. So that's what this sidebar is telling you. It's kind of just a quick reference, let you know where you are, and then it has some additional information. But it's always worth keeping an eye on. Yeah, so I blew up some of those, but I like just going to the drawing instead. So I'm going to touch on this quickly. We'll talk about it more probably on Saturday, but drawings will typically have these column lines, and they'll go down the side too. And these are basically coordinates. So if you do have a large project that's multiple floors, and I don't know, you're worried about where floor penetrations are and keeping track between what you took off on the first floor and the second floor, and was that bathroom right here or was it over here? It looks different. These are just to help you keep track of where you are on the drawing. So 9.0.2 on the second floor is going to be the same as 9.0.2 on the first floor. So even if it looks completely different, you can kind of keep track of where you are. That's what these are doing. All right, so now you're actually into the drawings a little bit. It's going to open up with a general notes page, and these can be a pain in the butt. There's no getting around it. It's often a mix of useless information, boilerplate information, with absolutely critical information sprinkled in. And unfortunately, that's kind of the best way I would describe it. You're going to read a bunch of it and wonder why did I take the time to read it? And then you're going to have one project where they slipped a note in that cost you a lot of money. We got a chat. Oh, okay, no problem. I want to find a better general note page. Bear with me. So this is the structural sets general notes. Same idea, but a lot of drawings will have a general note page that applies to all trades. And that's always worth reading. And then within each trade, so within each S set of drawings, within each P set of drawings, within each A set of drawings, they're going to have typically a general notes page. A smaller project, actually, that's probably, let's see here. A smaller project may be able to include it on the cover. Yeah, so this one is a small project. So their notes are down here. That's actually not, that's kind of a design note, but yeah, this one doesn't have a note page, but it's something to look out for general. I guess they have a whole drawing for it instead of a page. But it's worth reviewing, only because occasionally there will just be something sneaky critical that they throw in there. They're usually pretty good at not putting Easter eggs like that in places you won't see them. You know, if you are a security devices installer, they're not going to have a lot of, they're not going to have information on your scope in the civil drawings. They do take some consideration to make this not easy, but at least logical. I say that hesitantly, and we'll get into this in the estimating side. You'll find it's worth reviewing some scopes outside of your set of drawings, just to make sure, especially in MEP, because mechanical and plumbing have systems that are closely connected, if not actually physically connected. So occasionally you get some scope bleed over between those two, and same with electrical. I would say probably less so in some of the other trades, but anything general, I would always read. If it applies to everybody, take the time to read it. Yeah. Yeah, so a note that could come back to bite you. The general notes may have something along the lines of project requires permanent non-working supervision. That's one that I've actually run into. So what that is saying is, on top of the people you need to do the work, and even on top of your project manager, you need someone who is just there, not doing a lick of work, by contract, cannot do work, and is just supervising. And sometimes that note will have a ratio of how many of those non-working supervisors you need per, if you've got 20 people on the job, you might need 2 of them. Another thing in the general notes that can come back are, and we're getting a little more on kind of the estimating and putting together a takeoff, but fire fire watch. So if you are in an area that has any sort of flammability concerns, you will have to have somebody who is not watching or not working, but is just standing below the person or wherever with an extinguisher or access to an extinguisher, and they're just watching, waiting. And you have to factor those labor hours in. So maybe, you figured you just have to install a pipe in this room. So it's going to take, one person a day. But what you didn't figure is there's you need a fire watch in this area because there's a gas canister somewhere. So you just doubled your hours on that little job from a note. Also, so there's things like that. It would be general things that apply to the whole project. That they're not going to call out in your specific trade. You just need to know if you're on this project, we've got these conditions, you need to account for them. And there's a few more options. It could be phasing notes. There might be a note that you can't work in this area at this time, or a note that says all work, you have to leave no trace at the end of the day. That's one I've seen that's a tricky one. So you can't stage anything for the next morning. You got to do your work, and then you got to stop working, an hour, 2 hours early, tear everything down, make it look like nobody was there, and then do it all again the next day. So it sounds, relatively harmless, but on a big job, if you're losing 2 hours at, an hour in the morning setting up and an hour in the afternoon taking down, you got to factor losing 2 hours a day into the whole factor. So those are kind of the general notes that could bite you. It's usually site logistics or project logistics. And you'll get a feel for it. McDonald, some projects probably aren't going to have crazy stringent restrictions like these. But some small projects will. And a lot of the projects that do have these kind of stringent restrictions are pretty good money usually too. If you can put up with them. So now we're going to get into plan view drawings. So now we're getting a little bit into the flow, I guess. So first you're going to have your cover page. Again, this is for each trade, the majors. And then you're going to have maybe a note page or something like of that nature, or the notes are all on one page. And then you're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes of the drawings, really, or the plan view drawings. These are the overhead views that are most associated with construction drawings, the 2D views. They will typically be broken up by the scopes we discussed. And then within each scope, again, within the mechanical drawings or within the plumbing drawings, they're going to be scoped up, or they will be broken up by floor or by area. And I shouldn't use scope twice in this, but or by system. And I go in that way. So that's really particularly mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. Their plan views might be broken up a few different ways. Again, it's going to depend on the size and the complexity of the project. So on the mechanical side, If it's a pretty decent sized project, they're likely going to break out the piping from the ductwork. And that is just so you can do an accurate takeoff, because if the ductwork and the pipe were all on top of each other, it would just be a mess. You know, you wouldn't be able to take anything off. It would just be a mess of lines. So they do that just to make this a little clearer. And that's another thing when you're evaluating these sets of drawings and it looks monstrous. They might just be going a little overboard on their clarity and giving you broken up sets of drawings for different systems. And it's just something to consider, especially when you're evaluating a project and you're clicking through the drawings. You go, gosh, there's 30 mechanical drawings. Well, yeah, but there's not much on each drawing. They've separated them for clarity. Plumbing, more common. I would say not quite typically, but very often. Plumbing will have a domestic water drawing, a separate drawing for its sanitary system. Storm and sanitary usually put together, but you get the drift. Again, that's going to depend on the complexity of the project and if there's just too many lines on the drawings. Electrical power or electrical will typically be broken up into power and receptacles. Lighting will be a separate drawing, and then you'll get into like data, life safety, security in those sets. Sometimes they've got their own set of drawings. Sometimes they will be lumped in with the electrical. And the architectural drawings will also have their plan views broken up, kind of depending on the scope, because architectural covers a lot. Obviously, it covers the building, the carpets, the painting, the everything. So architecturals will typically be broken up by it'll have your partition plans, excuse me. And that's going to go into finishes. It's going to have reflected ceiling plans. That's going to show your different ceiling systems. It might have a separate plan for flooring. Sometimes they can fit that with the partitions. It really depends on how busy are these drawings getting. Is it becoming impossible to read? Okay, let's break this out into a different group of drawings. That's really the whole idea. And that's really the only reason they will break drawings out like that, is if you overlay them, it just gets impossible to read. So just when you're evaluating, a lot of these drawings are likely for reference and for clarity. So I want to, so on the plan view, again, one of the first things to look at, you'll start getting your scale. We mentioned sometimes that's on the sidebar, but I would say more often than not, it's shown like this. I have it blown up down here. It's going to be under your plan view drawings, and we're going to bop to a real one in a second. This is a compass that's showing you what's north. That's actually typical too. Not something I've used a ton, but not useless. That's something that'll either be here or on the sidebar. So let me get to a good plan view. So this is an electrical plan view. This is the lighting plan for reference. So first thing, again, this is more on the estimating takeoff side, but you'd check your scale. This one is shown at the bottom. We're gonna get into, so your plan views are gonna have notes. We're gonna get into keyed notes a little bit later. But each plan view will typically have general notes. These usually are gonna be boilerplate and plastered on every single drawing. The keyed notes are what are gonna change drawing to drawing. And again, we're gonna get into those in a little bit. I'll show you another plan view. Yeah, this is a busy one. It kind of goes against what I was saying. This is an architectural plan view of a kitchen. And this is one I would say the architect did not do a great job of clarity. I mean, you don't want to see all these lines on top of each other, but you do see them. Let's see if we got another one. This is an architectural reflected ceiling plan. So this is a plan view, but this is a plan view of the ceiling systems. So you had one of these that was just all of all the partitions, and that didn't have any of this hatching in there. It was just showing you the walls. So then they break out the ceiling systems for you. And again, we're going to go over what some of this stuff is. Just in case you're wondering what the heck is this stuff and why aren't we talking about it. I really just want to talk about the general layout for now and what you're seeing, and then we're going to get much more in depth into everything. But these are just the different plan views you'll see for each scope. They're all showing different things. This one might be a little bit better. Yeah, so this one's a little bit better. This is smaller, more traditional architectural. So, the plan view is just going to show you the rooms. And that's going to be shown like this. Typically, the plan view will show you bathroom fixtures and whatnot, but if you're a plumber, you'll have your own set of drawings. It's good. It doesn't hurt. That's kind of one of your crossovers. If you are in a trade that has something shown on architecturals, it does not hurt to go back and check, are they showing what's on my plumbing drawings? And you can see that with lighting as well. On these architectural reflected ceiling plans, they're showing you light fixtures, but they're not labeled. On your electrical drawings, these will all be labeled and you'll know what they are. But on a big job like this, to be honest with you, I'm probably not double checking every fixture with the architectural, but it's that sort of crossover that you should be aware of, that just kind of that general relationship where maybe you did have a question, you think they messed up something in this room on the plumbing or on the electrical drawings. You think, do they really want 10 fixtures in that room? Let me check the architectural, because if they did it in both sets of drawings, they must really want it. It must not be a mistake. So then you could check the architectural and you see this room. Okay, that makes much more sense. I'm going to go with the architectural version. It's not going to happen on every job. It's just one of those things to kind of, work yourself to be privy to. is that the relationship between these drawings, there can be some checks built in. Um, just, double checking stuff, lighting, plumbing fixtures. I won't be able to come up with all of them off the top of my head, but there is overlap between these drawings. The difference when it overlaps will be the detail. In the electrical, you're getting all the detail you could possibly want on all these fixtures, and they're not going to be showing you. Most likely, they won't be showing you the type of ceiling system it's in. So that might be something you need to worry about if it's a special ceiling system, but um, that's kind of more in the advanced or into the estimating and takeoff lessons. Um, but that's just kind of understanding the relationship. If you've got something that goes in the ceiling, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, it might be worth taking a few minutes to check out your architectural reflected ceiling plans. That's what these are. That's just one example of kind of crossover. Actually, we're at about 8. We want to do like a 10-minute break. Sound agreeable?
That'll work.
All right. So let's do that and be back here at 7:10. Alrighty. So, I think instead of the chat, we don't have too many people here. So I think if you want to chime in on audio, you can. How's the speed? I feel like I talked a lot that first bit. If you guys have anything you want me to go back and talk about or talk more about, let me know. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So now we know our plan view. Um, I don't know if I want to get into the symbols quite yet. We're going to start talking about just because you've seen a lot of them. So obviously these drawings, especially the plan views, the meat of what you're going to be taking off is full of little symbols and different types of line segments and different types of hatching, shading. And there's a million different little things on there, and it can be a little overwhelming. And these are your symbols, your key notes, and the graphical representations of things. So these symbols are going to be used throughout the drawings and scopes, and they're indicating a piece of equipment, a certain material, a finish, or a note. Typically, symbols correspond to a schedule, and that's again what I'm talking about with how these things flow together. The schedule provides the information you actually need on that symbol. Some generic symbols, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like in plumbing, like they'll have a symbol for a ball valve. That's not going to be scheduled. It's just a ball valve. And then each trade is going to have some sort of equivalent. The more generic a thing is, the less likely it's going to have a schedule, which is there to give you precise information that you need to price. So, but a lot of symbols are going to be tied to a schedule somewhere. Keyed notes are symbol-esque. They're usually a certain shape, triangle, square, circle, octagon, with a note or with a number in it. And those are used to call out certain areas. And we're going to be going through all this, but to call out certain areas and apply, a sort of lengthy description to that area. And rather than have that paragraph blocking up the drawing, they want everything to be as clear as possible for the takeoff. They'll just put a little symbol telling you to go read this note up at the corner usually. So you're going to see a lot of keyed notes on a drawing along with symbols. Different kinds of shading is going to be telling you things. On a facade drawing, if any of you do facade work or maybe you do facade cleaning, different shades will usually be indicating a different, a stone finish versus some sort of stucco versus some other things I'm not sure about. Or it might be used on a flooring drawing. There might be different hatches, different designs used to indicate a different type of floor. I'm not using ceiling systems in that regard because you can, but ceiling systems are usually they kind of reflect what they are. So you're not going to get a weird hatch mark ceiling that says this is 2x2 ACT. The ceiling is going to look like a 2x2 ACT ceiling. They kind of draw it out. But it's just another way they show things. So you might see a drawing, it's got areas shaded in, it's got some areas with hatch marks going through it. It's all just graphic representations for real things. And then different types of line segments will be used in different distribution systems. I think this is almost entirely for plumbing and HVAC. I'm trying to think of examples of linear footages of things that would be shown in a different type of hash mark, but this is typically in plumbing and HVAC, and what all this is saying, all what this is saying is, you know, the domestic water might be shown as a solid line with a quick dot and then a solid line. The hot water might be shown as a solid line, 2 dots, and a solid line. And that's just so that when you're doing your linear feet of pipe takeoff on a drawing, it just makes it a little easier to keep track of what you're looking at. Because it can be, you know, it can be a pain to look away from a drawing for a second, then you have to trace back, you know, a certain line all the way to a hot water heater just to make sure you're still counting the right line. So typically they will differentiate their lines in that way. And the most important part is all of these symbols, all of these legend, or all of these keyed notes, these different line segments, these hatchings, you don't have to memorize them. You probably will pretty quickly because a lot of this stuff is repeated. But every drawing, and you know, engineers and architects are human, and, you know, they make mistakes, but I do believe they're typically pretty good at anything on their drawing is going to have some sort of legend. It might be on the drawing itself. A lot of times it will be on the trade cover sheet. So, like for instance, these two go together, what I'm showing you. So the next drawing, or the next slide is a drawing that these correlate to. So this is a good example of the keyed notes. So on the following drawing, they just have these 6s, 8s, 3s, and I cut this out. This was a small part of a much bigger drawing. So what they're saying there, instead of giving you all the information, what you'd be looking at is, all right, so what's going on with that 3? The 3 is new casework. Okay. So they're telling you need new casework around the labs. We got 6s and 8s. What are these 6s and 8s? I've got no idea. So you go to it. Your 6 is new ceiling tile at grid, and the 8 is giving you your floor finish. New floor and wall finishes, see interior finish plans. And that's also, while we're there, a common thing you'll see. And part of the flow and the synergy of drawings is you'll read a note that tells you to go get more information somewhere else. And that's how this works a lot of time. Some are better than others. Some are, you know, really well thought out. It just makes sense. You go, okay, that's where all this info is. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Sometimes the way they do it, you're kind of bumping around, and you got to go to your interior elevation interior elevation drawings to get more information. But they at least tell you where to look. And if there's really anything from the first day, first lesson that I want to get across is it's kind of like give a person a fish, feed them for a day, teach them to fish. Is you don't have to memorize all this stuff. Once you kind of get a feel for where stuff is and how it works, a lot of the answers to your questions are going to be on the drawing somewhere. If you just kind of know how to look or know where to look and know how they're put together. So this is an example of plumbing, symbols and legends. I did this one so you can see here with the different dashes. Some of them they just keep the same. They've got their symbols here. I mean, they're even telling you If it's your really first time looking at drawings, this is something we're going over in the actual estimating and takeoff side. But you know, they're telling you here, this is what it looks like when we're showing you a pipe going up. This is what it looks like when we're showing you a pipe going down. So even if you were, you know, kind of brand new looking at a drawing going, what the heck am I looking at? You know, my main point is take a breath, start looking for the answer somewhere because it's probably there. Um, and a lot of these legends, I get rid of that. Yeah, okay. So these sort of legends, symbol schedules, abbreviations, these are on that those general note pages and those cover sheets for your individual trades. So it's going to be on the first, probably first one or two drawings of your specific trade. And you know, it's very typical. They're going to look something like this. So this is your fire protection. And you can see this was a smaller job. So they've actually got, looks like they got some schedules down here. Yeah, so they're even giving you, you know, your sprinkler head types and sizes and ratings and manufacturer. So this was a smaller project, so they have a schedule on here, but you know, this is another type of schedule that's just telling you, um, you know, what each sprinkler is. Also, they have this legend. So these are some of the hatches, the different, you know, sort of graphical area designations. So, you know, this isn't something you'll ever memorize. They don't do ordinary hazard group always as this. It's more important that you just learn where to look and to look. Um, you know, just look in those, look at the information they're providing you because they're probably giving it to you for a reason. So that first cover page is going to have a lot of info. So that's that plumbing. It's giving you all your symbols. Here's some general notes just for fire protection. These are general notes probably on the whole job. These are going to be on every trade. Sorry. These will probably be on every trade's first page. These notes apply specifically to fire protection. Even more than general, these are critical. These can have some funky stuff in them. I don't know if there's a good general example, but you know, I've had a project that mentioned what was it? I think it was I was doing an electrical project and just in the electrical notes on the first page, not mentioned anywhere else, was this note that said, you know, provide 2,000 linear feet of extra 2-inch conduit, provide 15,000 linear feet of extra 12 gauge conductor. And it was like a pretty big list of these extra materials not shown on the drawings anywhere, not mentioned in the specs. It was just, you know, note 5 on the electrical general notes. So your trade's first page, you know, always worth reviewing at the start. And chances are, if you have a question, you know, what am I looking at? What are they trying to tell me? This is a decent place to start, you know, because it's going to have the different valves for the fire protection system and how they're being shown on this drawing, because it won't be shown exactly the same on every drawing. There's definitely typicals, but you know, never exactly the same. So it's just one of those things where you know, you never need to panic because you know, you see something, you go, oh crap, you know, what is this thing? This is one of the first places to go see. There's going to be a legend either on the general page. So this one's got, it looks like it's got its full spec book on drawings. So again, this is plumbing, same format. It's got all your drawing tools. Got some general notes, abbreviations, specifications. What did I want to show you there? Yeah, so on HVAC, you saw plumbing didn't have its own notes. So, that's something. So when they do add something, they added it for a reason. So this has specific ductwork notes. So you're definitely going to want to read that. And again, we're gonna, in the estimating takeoff and probably in the second session as well, which is really, I'm gonna start bleeding more into estimating takeoff in the next session. For sure, because they're so tightly. I mean, you're reading this so that you can take it off. So this is, yeah, we're talking, let's see, get back. Yeah, so another use of hatching and shading. Again, really common, indicating areas not in scope. So if we blow this one out, so you're looking at this drawing, and it's nice they labeled this, but I would also guarantee, I shouldn't guarantee anything, but I would bet that they also tell you somewhere in a legend or a schedule that this means it's not in scope, but they go ahead and tell you. So that's where I took this from. So that's just another thing, you're looking at this project, don't take off anything over here. They show it to be consistent, but this is something you do want to pay attention because there's random rooms that aren't in your scope of work. And this is on a general page towards the beginning. And that's why it is at the beginning, because it applies to everybody. And that's why you don't want to skip over the beginning drawings. You can probably, once they start getting into your like civil and structural and you're not doing any of that stuff, you can pretty confidently start skipping through them. But anything that's a general note, you definitely want to take a look at, because that's what they're doing with this drawing. Is this drawing applies to everybody. So rather than include it in everybody's bid package, we're going to show you once. Don't do anything in these areas. It's not in our scope. The reflected ceiling plan, we went over that. So we did talk about drawing notes. We talked about keyed notes, but on most drawings, you'll have notes that are not keyed, which means they're not, they don't have a symbol around them and they aren't tied to a legend. Let's see if we can find a good one. And these are typically in your plan views. Yeah, so this is a demo drawing. And you can see there's two sets of notes. Drawing notes you need to always read. Notes in general, I guess, as would be my point. There's some stuff that you'll see that is boilerplate, that is just being repeated over and over again. That'll make itself clear to you pretty quick. But, just as a rule of caution, don't skip notes. It's bad designing, it's bad architecture but they do just hide random stuff in there sometimes. So the difference here, you can see these are your keyed notes. We're not, I know you probably can't read it, but we're not overly concerned. Just telling you everything that's going on in these specific areas. So in this area, it's note 1. These general removal notes aren't keyed to anything. They just apply to all of the removals. So, this one, examine drawings in the areas and conditions where removals work shall be performed in correct conditions detrimental to timely and proper completion of work. Do not proceed until unsatisfactory. So that's a weird note, even right there, that I just picked at random. So they're basically putting the onus on the contractor to find errors in the drawings and fix those errors in the field. I mean, that's kind of how I read that little note. So, yeah, again, this is from a pretty, or is this, it's small, but it's kind of complex. It's a big old, like a boat manufacturer or something weird. But that's kind of the difference between your notes. You've got your keyed notes. Each one of these is in a circle. Oh, that's so whenever you see a keyed note, if this were a square, the way they show it, all of these would be little squares. Sometimes they show this as a triangle. All of these would be little triangles with their corresponding notes. Again, I don't think there's a rhyme or reason to what shape they choose, but it's always a rudimentary shape with a number in it. And then your general notes are just applying to the whole thing. So you kind of have different sets of notes on each drawing. Let's see if we can get another one. Demo is kind of special. Yeah, so this doesn't have really general notes, it just has your key notes. So this has a set. So this one doesn't have any keyed notes. Doesn't look like it, but it has general notes up here. Yeah, so these are all, you can kind of tell just by reading them that they just apply to the whole ceiling scope. They're not calling out a certain area. They're not calling out a specific piece of equipment. These notes reflect the whole drawing. That's the difference between the keyed notes, which only represented certain areas, very specific areas. Yeah, so these all, and then what you can see here is they're all starting to kind of look the same, right? All these drawings, they all kind of have something up here. They're broken up nicely. So you'll start to get a feel for them. And then you're looking over here, first floor reflected ceiling plan, first floor reflected ceiling plan area A. So they have this thing broken up into 2 different areas. So you want to make sure you're not duplicating takeoff. And that's where reading down here makes sense. So now first floor reflected ceiling plan area C. So if you didn't know before, now you know that there's an area A, B, and C just because you're paying attention to your drawing notes. And that's how they're breaking this up. This wasn't a huge job, but they felt it would be advantageous to break up the area into 3 areas. Maybe it's phased. This was from a decent bit ago, but they broke this one up, and that's all they're showing you there. Second floor area A, so then they're going to go through second floor area B, C, just the same way they did. And that's the flow. And that's what I mean by flow, is you're going to start going, you're just going to see how it's put together. So now you know it's got your plan view area A, B, C, first floor, plan view A, B, C, second floor, reflected ceiling view A, B, C, first floor, reflected ceiling plan A, B, C, second floor. And once you kind of have that, that's how this drawing is put together. It just makes it a lot easier to kind of bop around where, you just look at this and know you need to go a few back to get back to the first floor because you just know how these drawings are broken up now. And, that's going to change. Every job breaks up their drawings in a different way. But it's, as long as you're paying attention to this, you're just seeing how they're labeled. I always like to go through them first without, taking anything off. Maybe I'm just taking notes, seeing if anything jumps out at me. But, if I were flipping through this on a first round, one of the first things I would jot down appears to be broken into 3 areas. And I didn't see a drawing before that mentioned that, but clearly there's 3 areas broken out. So I don't want to get too into those yet. We're still in plan views. Went through and I showed you those. And do a civil plan view. I don't know if we got civil to folks. This job, I think it only had an addition, so I don't think it has a full civil drawing. Yeah, so this is the foundation plan. Obviously it's going to look much different than any of your interior plan views. But not necessarily always. I mean, if it were a full, you can see down here, they're showing you this little diagram. That's what you're looking at right now. So on this whole building, they're only doing foundation work in this little area. And that's pretty typical. It's not something you'll see on every drawing, but a lot of drawings, especially if they're larger, will have something like this showing you the overall footprint, and then it'll show you where you're at on that drawing. Just like this, it'll shade it in. Again, not on every job, mostly larger ones. Yeah, that's not uncommon to see somewhere. It's just letting you know where you're at. But for someone like me, I don't know much of anything about foundation work. I'll stick to it. I haven't done a ton of foundation work, so if I didn't know what any of this stuff was, I would go to my structural page. And hopefully get all the information I need from this thing. Well, it doesn't seem to have a legend like some of the other ones do. But I guess it's pretty well laid out. Let's see, do I want to see what we got next? Does anybody do we have any questions? I was gonna leave a half hour for questions, but when I came back there weren't too many.
Hi, I have my
Hello.
hand raised, so I'm just lower it.
Oh, okay.
Someone in the chat has said, give them an example of what it means to have. Let me go back to the question. When it's saying that when you're reading the um the paragraph, and I had example. I used to redline all CDs when I was dealing with telecom, and I used to be a regulatory compliance manager. And we used to always make comments in there and say, hey, this is a quiet zone, this is for red lighting and things like that. And if they didn't see that, they can get in trouble if
Oh yeah.
they do the total opposite. So that was just examples of why it's important to read those paragraphs, because I was the one that was writing in those paragraphs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and that's exactly what you'll find, or code compliance, or just these special situations that it can add a lot to a bid, or at the very least needs to be carefully considered. Going through plan view. So I'll do We've still got 20 minutes. So no more no other questions. I'm gonna keep talking for a little bit. Been talking a lot. Is this pretty much, have a lot of you seen this before? Is this too high level?
No, you are doing an awesome job. It's very detailed, even though my job, when I was saying I was doing a red line, it consists of what they trained me to do. So a lot of it I did not know. I just knew what to watch out for based on the scope of work. So I knew if there was a dish added and we're only adding mountain 5G, then I knew that wasn't supposed to be there. So we send that to Rev O and a Rev A, Rev B, from preliminary to B. So this is very detailed, even with now we had a bid come in and it was shaded out and I sent it to my architect like, hey, let me know what you think this will be. But understanding more about how to identify certain areas for bids, this was very helpful for that.
Perfect. I'm glad. Glad. Okay, so we'll touch on anyone else? We'll touch on one more kind of set of drawings. So we just went over the plan views. And again, that's, for a lot of folks, that's kind of going to be the meat and potatoes in terms of showing you what's on the drawings, what's on the scope. A lot of information is there and then you reference. But a lot of folks will also need to be checking their exterior elevations. And these are going to be on every project, I'll say pretty confidently. So that's all your facade work, obviously, will be shown on an exterior elevation. Your windows, sometimes they do show windows on your plan view, but they're kind of hard to decipher. They're just kind of little thin parts of the wall. And obviously you're just seeing them in one dimension. So if you do stuff with windows, this is probably where you're going to be hanging out in the exterior elevations. But if you're indoor, especially I think there was like door security, you do stuff like that. Your exterior doors are going to be shown there. They're probably going to be shown in maybe some added detail than what's shown on the plan view. Not necessarily, but sometimes. Exterior light fixtures. So even if you're an electrician and your electrical drawings should show you all your exterior light fixtures. If they did a good job, all that jazz. That said, I've definitely worked on projects where I missed light fixtures because they weren't shown on the e-drawings. They were shown on an exterior elevation, or actually the example I'm thinking of, they were shown on, I think, a landscape drawing. But just kind of one of those things, if you work with anything that could be on the exterior of a building, check out your elevations. Mechanical, louvers, plumbing, like vent terminals, stuff like that. At the very least, it's a pretty good reference. It's going to help you get a better idea of what you're putting a number to. And yeah, if you have can be reference for floor heights. There's a few places where they'll typically give you floor heights. I like using the elevations. It just seems like the most realistic to me. Or I don't know, I just like checking the elevations. I'll usually write down my floor heights. Um, um, and just anything else that jumps out at me dealing with the scope that I'm working on. Exterior elevations are something I check even outside of my scope. And then rigging. So if you have to figure rigging, these are very important because this is where they'll show you that, if you have to get a big old piece of equipment, let's say there's a 6-floor tower and then, or an 10-floor tower. You guys are in Chicago, I need to go higher. I live in the woods. So like a 60 floor tower, but it's surrounded by a 20 floor area. So a crane not only has to get up 60 floors, but it has to somehow reach over, this set of this lower roof. For an example, these are the things that the exterior elevation is going to give you. It's going to have that pop out to you better than the 2D images will. Both will show that, but the exterior is just kind of a better representation. So if you have anything that you're lifting, I would check the rigging or check the exterior elevations. So these are, this is a set of exterior elevation. I'm gonna bring it up in the real drawing. So we can zoom in. So as you can see, some of the stuff we talked about with the different shading and the different graphical representations of facade types. So these W1s, these symbols are all tied to a Windows schedule. And that's kind of the synergy. So rather than write all the information about this window, and we're gonna get into this on Saturday, there's gonna be a whole page dedicated to just Windows. And it's gonna have, W1, and it's gonna tell you everything you need to know about every single window that's labeled W1 and W4 and so on. But just some more things. So you're getting your elevations here. That's what they're telling you to slab. And they give you kind of some maybe surprise helpful stuff. Like they will often show you the depths of some of your below slab piping or anything below slab. If you got like a radon system, this has your electrical conduit, and these elevations should be accurate. And if anything, they're just showing you, maybe they didn't do a great job showing that some of this stuff was sub slab, or maybe you just weren't quite paying attention the first time you went through it, but you decided to check your exterior elevation just for fun, and you see this stuff and you go, oh man, all right, I gotta go recheck because it sure looks like they've got some sub slab stuff, and I don't remember taking off anything sub slab. So that's just another way where, it's not necessarily that you have to check this because it's got all sorts of stuff for you, but it's worth checking because it might have something for you, and it might just clarify something. It's good to know the whole job. If you can, we all get crazy busy, and maybe you just have enough time to count your stuff and send it out with 50% marked up. But on a project where you got some time and you're really trying to be competitive, it really helps to know the whole thing, even if it's pretty far outside of your scope and it may not really have anything to do with you. You should be aware that these sort of drawings exist, and be aware that they can help you. Absolutely. And they very well may have something important for you. So yeah, this is telling you everything with these lines, which looks like the majority of this building is this exposed fastener, corrugated zinc, some word cladding on light gauge metal frame. And you would take this whole thing off and get after it. Let's see if we got any more here. And then, I know it's probably annoying to watch me shuffle through drawings, but this is actually kind of the best way to just, again, hammer it through how they're put together. So you're seeing all the plan views. Now we're going into details, which we haven't gotten into yet, but we will. different sets of plan views. These are interior elevations, which are next. Interior. Huh. We only have the one elevation. Where did I get that elevation from? Oh, this was a different project. Okay. Oh yeah, I mean, maybe I'll bring up another elevation next class, but I think you get the idea. You know, yeah, so they're gonna give you an elevation from every direction. So this is typical, and I took this drawing from a bigger package, so I guarantee there is also an east and south version of this. And that's again very typical. They're going to break it out. This is the north side, this is the south side, east side, west side, and then you know that matters too. And then because you have that compass on each drawing that's showing you which way is north. So you know if for whatever reason you needed to know, you know, again I guess for venting of a mechanical or a plumbing system. You know, this has me venting out of the north side. And you look at this north side elevation, you know, that sure looks like I don't know, it's on the main street. You know, it's right above this storefront. Are they sure they want me to vent on the north side? And, you know, kind of just gets the brain working a little bit. Yeah, so that's typical north, south, east, west is how the exterior elevations are broken up. I'm gonna stop it there. I don't think I'll be babbling about interior elevations next. But I think that would do it. Does anybody again know, you know, always open to questions. One last opportunity.
Hello, this is Ed McMillan, Skyline Ornamental. I have to do a fair share of this with what we do. I have an estimator. I just, not a question, but I just want to make a statement. It's very interesting. You know, I was listening in and just trying to absorb everything. I just wanted to let you know that paying close attention to what you're saying. I want to get deeper into it. You know, I don't have any questions yet. I'm just trying to, you know, like I said, absorb everything and just trying to take it in and get used to it. That's
Absolutely.
all. Just trying to learn from scratch, you know.
Yeah, hey, I hear you, and I appreciate that. And again, I am going to repeat myself a lot. It's, you know, by design. Um, even, you know, on Saturday, I'll be touching on a lot of this again because it's all kind of connected. So yeah, if you know, always if there's something that you think about between now and then, you know, we can address questions right off the jump about this session. And then you can rest assured I'm definitely going to be, you know, I'll be flipping through these drawings again on Saturday, and just calling out stuff that we've gone over. So yeah, pretty much everything I've talked about, I will at least touch on again Saturday, and probably even in those estimating classes because that's pretty closely tied to what we're talking about now. But I guess if that's it, chat. Oh, alrighty. I don't think it's for me. All right, I think stop sharing. Check the chat. I think Suzanne took off. All right, guys. I'm gonna call it a night, and then hopefully I get to see you guys all on Saturday. I appreciate you
Right.
sitting through listening.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll see you Saturday.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, and you? I'm Kathy Jones. I'm with K Jones Plumbing, and I was just wondering, outside of the class on Saturday, if you wouldn't mind, would you be available for like a one-on-one type of Q&A? Because I'm also a plumbing contractor, my husband and I, and so just linking up with other people is always something we try to do, just to get some more insight. We're newbies at this, so.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can do something like that for sure. I don't know if Suzanne's got like an official pipeline for it, but yeah,
Okay, I just want to know if you would even be open to it, and if so, then I definitely would
no,
do the
absolutely. I
proper
think
channels.
especially plumbing too, because I can rant and rave about plumbing. That's what I cut my teeth on. So
I bet you could. I get my husband and you in the room, and you guys would, because I'm
oh yeah.
just, business
Oh, the
part of
field.
it. He does all the technical.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. The paperwork's the fun part.
Yeah, exactly. Especially here in the city. But thank you. I really appreciate this. I'll be back on Saturday.
All right, awesome. No problem. Thank you.
Bye.